External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar recently addressed a press briefing where he answered concerns that have been raised by foreign reporters regarding Prime Minister Narendra Modi's recent diplomatic engagements, particularly his visit to Russia in July this year. Addressing a question by a reporter who claimed that many people were upset to see the interaction between PM Modi and Putin, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar highlighted the cultural differences between the West and the East. He said that in our part of the world, when people meet, they are given to embracing each other and it is a part of our culture. He then pointed out that Prime Minister Modi also embraced Ukrainian President Zelensky on his most recent diplomatic tour to Ukraine. He further emphasizes that we have a slightly cultural gap in terms of what these countries means. And responding to another question on whether India would impose sanctions on Russia amid its war with Russia, he said that sanctions are not a part of India's political and diplomatic history. Let's in fact now listen into what the External Affairs Minister Jaishankar has said.
You know, in our part of the world, when people meet people, they are given to embracing each other. It may not be part of your culture, but I assure you it's part of ours. In fact, today I think I saw the Prime Minister also embrace President Zelensky, and I've seen him do it with a number of other leaders in a number of other places. So I think perhaps we have a slightly cultural a gap here in terms of what these courtesies mean.
All right, joining me on the broadcast is Ambassador Suresh K. Goel, who's a former diplomat as well. We appreciate you joining us on the broadcast, sir. What essentially needs to be looked at this given point is the kind of reaction this diplomatic and a very crucial visit by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Ukraine has garnered. Well, this is first of the visit by any Indian Prime Minister since, Ukraine gained independence from the Soviet Union in the year 1991, and essentially all eyes were on it, and the kind of statements that have come forward by Prime Minister Narendra Modi acting as a slightly peacemaker between the two nations who are at war actually raise a lot of reactions from across the world. But essentially what I need to understand is what this means for India and Ukraine ties, and especially in context with the India and Russia ties.
Simran, I think, first of all, thank you very much for asking me. It's an important question that you ask. And this is the question that everybody has been talking about over the last 2 or 3 days. And yesterday, practically the whole day, we were discussing this issue only as to what to expect out of the visit for both India and in terms of Ukraine, Russia, and the global political situation. Number one, Prime Minister Modi went there after about 6 weeks of his visit to Russia. And I think there was a kind of expectation, unnecessary and unwarranted, but there were many people in the West who thought that Prime Minister Modi might actually be preparing to play a mediatory role between Ukraine and Russia, even though our side had consistently said that there is no possibility of a mediation role for India, simply because the issue in Europe is a European security issue. India does not have much of a leverage to really persuade any side to enter into ceasefire or negotiations, with the exception of conveying very firmly, which he has done, that the war between the two, Ukraine and Russia, is hurting the world. It is not benefiting anyone. Particularly the developing countries of the South have suffered. India has suffered through food security, energy security, availability of components for our equipment, and so on and so forth. India has suffered. India has suffered basically because of our own supply lines having broken, and therefore urging the two countries to end the war. But it is for them, both Ukraine and Russia, to sit together and talk to each other. And I think useful thing will be, one thing which I would say it's very important, that unfortunately at the end in 1991, with the end of Cold War, I do not see any justification for NATO to continue except as a military bloc against Russia. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, in terms of an ideological warfare, was supposed to counter the expansion of the socialist bloc. That was finished in Europe. So where was the need for NATO? And where was the need for NATO to further expand up to the Russian borders? So I think the entire Europe, along with the NATO members, do need to sit down and sort this issue out.
All right.
What do we get out of it? I think basically if there can be peace in Europe once again, that will facilitate our own economic development, that will facilitate our economic growth and our supply lines. That's really more than what we can ask for under the circumstances.
All right.
Russia, Ukraine.
All right,
Mr.
Goyal, thank you
yes.
with all these details and in fact sharing your detailed perspective on the crucial visit by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Ukraine.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.